development of the cloud, broadband, and committed to promoting broadband industry cooperation. China Telecom will be more than glad to share our experiences in cloud broadband with global industrial chain partners, jointly build a new cloud network convergence infrastructure, connect the world, and enable the digital transformation forward a prosperous future.
We've gone from kilobits per second to megabits per second. We are now in the gigabit era. It's quite amazing what we're achieving, and broadband is actually changing people's lives. So the single most important thing that the World Broadband Association has to do over the next couple of years is to create that same sense of excitement with people everywhere about broadband, to influence policymakers, regulators, investors, that broadband is something that everybody needs and that we need to invest in.
Chorus joined the WBBA because we believe that it will help identify and drive share goals across the broadband industry. We know that as a collective, we can learn from each other, grow, and adapt to the future trends in our dynamic industry. In a short period of time, the WBBA has already released several white papers and is running global workshops looking at the various opportunities and the challenges ahead.
Well, there are many existing standards bodies that are focused on the technical specification of next generation broadband. But the WBBA has been created to focus on the business, financial, and the regulatory challenges of creating a viable, next generation broadband industry over the coming 10 to 15 years.
Today, broadband networks and the services that ride atop are, to many, deemed critical national infrastructure, essential to our modern digital lives in all of its forms. Yet, as an industry, we are somewhat overlooked, few noticing the wonders of the physics and many taking for granted the service until it's no longer there. The World Broadband Association has agreed a shared vision, ultra broadband for all, as a key enabler for a more equitable, sustainable future.
We're working with the World Broadband Association to try and get the high-speed, low-latency connectivity to suburban and rural communities. Many parts of the world focused on getting broadband connectivity to metro and metropolitan areas, and we believe that this high-speed, low-latency connectivity is required in the more rural areas to try and get the digital transformation so badly needed for these businesses.
For most of us, 2022 has been a year of change. Post the pandemic, social and economic recovery has picked up steam over the past year. And we are learning how to both survive and thrive in this new normal. This year has also been a year of growth for the WBBA. We have overhauled our organizational structure, and more members from around the world, including telecom operators, vendors, investors, are now on board, truly making the WBBA an increasingly important platform for international collaboration within the broadband industry.
All countries, therefore, regardless of their broadband legacy, should aim to develop a network that meets the World Broadband Association's vision of ultra-high-speed connectivity for all, a converged network that will help accelerate monetization, an agile network that enables new business models, full automation to maximize network and operations optimization, and a network that is fully secure and has minimal impact on the environment.
WBBA is an international platform focusing on the development of the cloud, broadband, and committed to promoting broadband industry cooperation. China Telecom will be more than glad to share our experiences in cloud broadband with global industrial chain partners, jointly build a new cloud network convergence infrastructure, connect the world, and enable the digital transformation forward a prosperous future.
We've gone from kilobits per second to megabits per second. We are now in the gigabit era. It's quite amazing what we're achieving, and broadband is actually changing people's lives. So the single most important thing that the World Broadband Association has to do over the next couple of years is to create that same sense of excitement with people everywhere about broadband, to influence policymakers, regulators, investors, that broadband is something that everybody needs and that we need to invest in.
Chorus joined the WBBA because we believe that it will help
important role. For instance, e-meeting, distance education, and medical care have become an indispensable part of people's daily life. However, there are still 2.7 billion people worldwide without access to the internet, and the digital divide still exists. The whole world needs to take new measures to achieve the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. To meet the above challenges, the World Broadband Association came into being. WBBA is a multilateral, industry-led association, providing leadership for digital broadband across the next decade. Our objective is to overcome industry challenges and support the drive towards the provision of broadband networks and services for all, with the goal of accelerating the healthy development of the industry, with sustainable benefits for stakeholders, end users, and society. WBBA will play an important role of serving global broadband network operators, vendors, industrial capital, and other stakeholders, uniting the global industry chain and facilitating industry chain communications and exchanges between it, as well as enhancing technological cooperation and promoting the innovation and development of the global cloud and network information infrastructure, and achieving the prosperity of the cloud and broadband industry around the world. On November 11, 2022, WBBA completed the Swiss legal registration, obtained the organization number issued by the Swiss federal government, and was officially entered into the Swiss Directory of International Organizations. The association has entered a phase of rapid development. By now, WBBA has developed 17 official members. We truly hope more and more stakeholders will join WBBA, strengthen the cooperation of the global broadband industry, join the journey of bridging the digital divide, creating a shared future of digital economy for the benefit of all humanity. We are looking forward to working closely with WBBA's partners to build a new global infrastructure and prosper the cloud network industry ecology for a brighter future and for a better world.
No?
And thank you for joining us here this afternoon at the World Broadband Association's Barcelona Seminar 2023. My name is Mark Oliver. I am Senior Consulting Director at Omdia, which is the research and consulting arm of Informa Tech. We have been proud to be a World Broadband Association partner since its inception in 2021, and I will be your host throughout this afternoon's event. We're very fortunate to have some distinguished industry leaders join us on stage today and offer welcome remarks. And I'd like to thank all of our speakers and panelists for their support, not just of today's event, but for the ongoing success of the World Broadband Association. Before we get to discuss the critical topics that we see on the screen here, I'd like to just share a couple of brief notices which will hopefully support your enjoyment of this afternoon's occasion. First of all, please do note that this event is going to be recorded and we'll be publishing the playback video on the World Broadband Association website for those who are unable to join us here in person this afternoon. You should also find a flyer on each of your seats which has QR codes to enable you to download today's agenda. It also gives you links towards the World Broadband Association thought leadership papers, which have been produced by our working groups comprised of our members over the course of the last year. I'd very much encourage you to download and engage and read those research papers. You can also make membership inquiries via the QR code. And again, I'd like to encourage you to take the time to submit that inquiry and to join us at the World Broadband Association on our journey as we seek to connect the world by bringing the benefit of broadband to all. There is also a brief, less than 5 minutes audience engagement survey for you to take part in as well, because your feedback as members and as part of our audience today is very important in the way that we develop future events and research. And just to note that we invite you to join us for our cocktail networking reception, which will be taking place next door immediately after today's event. With that, I'd like to welcome on stage today's sponsor, who will prepare his and deliver his address in Mandarin. So for those who would prefer to follow in English, I'll ask you to please insert your headset and move to channel 1 on the headsets to hear the address from Executive Director, President and COO of China Telecom, Mr. Zhao Guanglu.
Honorable Chairman Mr. Li Zhenmao, Mr. Hoffman, Secretary General Martin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here in Barcelona for the WBBA Seminar 2023. We're here to discuss opportunities for development. China Telecom has been committed to develop networks globally. In 68 countries and regions, we have offices serving our customers around the world. China Telecom's broadband internet networks serve about 180 million subscribers. Facing the new era of digital economy, China Telecom has implemented the strategy of embracing cloud and data, launching new services such as e-cloud, AI, cybersecurity, and digital platforms. These new services in recent years have exceeded 20% growth, and they have become the main driving force for China Telecom's growth. And they represent the very important drivers of our business development. We sincerely hope that WBBA can gather players in the global industry chain and make great contributions to the resolution of common issues facing the broadband development globally. The theme of this seminar is maximizing broadband's global potential, which is the common goal of all industry partners and stakeholders, including China Telecom. Broadband is a very important foundation of digital information infrastructure and also the key to building digital competitiveness. Cloud computing and AI technologies are key technologies for future digital development, while at the same time, cloud computing and AI have raised more requirements to broadband development. They also brought more challenges. Taking this opportunity, I want to propose 2 initiatives. First, construct international submarine cables. At present, China Telecom has invested in 53 submarine cables around the world and has more than 240 overseas nodes in operation. The bandwidth of international backbone trunks among overseas nodes exceeds 100 T. We are willing to work with our industry partners to provide higher quality international connectivity and help customers improve global competitiveness through digital transformation. Second, develop DC-based networks. The operator's backbone network traffic is gradually migrating to inter-DC traffic. The inter-DC traffic growth rate is very high. Facing that challenge, China Telecom is willing to work with global telecom operators to strengthen the DC network construction and improve the interconnectivity between DCs, and also enhance the service level of cloud networks so as to seize new opportunities in the digital economy. I believe that with our joint efforts, we are able to contribute to the growth of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guanglu, Executive Director of WBBA founder member, China Telecom. Now, for his analysis of the World Broadband Association journey so far and where we need to go next as an industry, I'd like to invite on stage World Broadband Association Director General, Martin Kriener.
Well, hello everyone, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. A lot of work has gone into creating an opportunity for this seminar to take place, and many thanks to China Telecom for all of the organization of it and the sponsorship of this, as well as all the many other companies and people who have been involved in making this happen. Today I'd like to give you a bit of background on the WBBA. Many of you may well have heard about it over recent months. Some of you may have been involved. But the WBBA has been on a journey these last 18 months that really culminated in the last few weeks with it being a fully fledged and formed organization. First discussions we had in the WBBA were all the way back in July 2021, about 18 months ago. And it was basically a discussion about the need for an organization that would represent the broadband industry right across the world, in the developing and in the developed world. Back in February or March 2022, a number of working groups were formed, focusing on some of the key areas like the key broadband roadmap of the future, sustainability, broadband advocacy, and so on. And I'll talk about them in a moment. This isn't our first event. We've held a number of different events in the last 12 months, both online and in person, late in 2022. But as a critical move back in October, November 2022, we've legally formed the WBBA. It's a Swiss-registered organization with the necessary articles and so on in place. And by today, 2023, we have formed a board. We have a fully fledged organization in place with plans set for 2023 and beyond. And so that has been, it takes a while to start an organization, but it's an organization I think that we're all very excited about and quite proud about the structure that we've put in place. So for those of you who don't know, the WBBA is an open, member-led, multilateral organization providing a platform to facilitate broadband cooperation and partnership across the whole industry. And it's really focused on championing the emergence of next generation networks, encouraging impactful regulation and policy, enabling vertical industry innovation, addressing unequal broadband access across the world, identifying the best way of having low impact in the environment as we move from generation to generation, and quite critically, and this is an important aspect for all of the members and all the key stakeholders, is to identify how we can achieve a sustainable ROI for the key stakeholders in this industry over the next 10, 15, 20 years. How do we deliver on this vision and mission? It's really about, I see 6 key aspects to how we're working. One is enabling collaboration. And as I mentioned, right before even the organization was properly formed, we had launched a number of collaborative teams working on what we see as the key hot priorities. More to certainly as a role to generate useful output, but almost more importantly, in order to refine how we're going to work and how we're going to work effectively together. It's very much focused on capturing requirements, understanding what excellence looks like in one part of the world and translating that to another part of the world. And it's about identifying best practices. So the requirement might look at what the demand side of the industry needs in terms of capability from the key operators and the key suppliers, or it might be around the best ways to roll out, or it might be around business models. It's also about championing broadband advocacy. And the WBBA is focused on trying to understand the key factors that will either accelerate broadband adoption across the world or remove roadblocks that have been slowing down broadband adoption across the world, and then packaging them up in an interesting way and communicating them to the key stakeholders who may well be governments, may well be financial institutions, may well be the boards of our member companies. It's certainly about sharing industry knowledge and best ideas, and it's also about organizing industry events such as this one. And we have great ambitions to hold many more and larger and more impactful events than this as the years go by. I talk about the supply side and the demand side of the industry. And when I say supply side, I mean the people who create broadband, the network operators, the key suppliers. But the demand side is equally important. And from a demand side, I see everything from the metaverse to vertical industries to perhaps the equipment CPE manufacturers. But also on the demand side are governments and financial industries and the cloud hyperscalers. And so what the WBBA aims to do is to create a forum for pulling all of those key stakeholders into a discussion about the future of the broadband industry. As I mentioned, we kicked off a number of working groups even before the WBBA was properly formed. And those were focused on what we saw as a number of the most important topics that need to be addressed. Certainly developing a next generational roadmap. If you think the mobile industry has, for 25 years or more, created a concept of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 5.5G, very clear understanding of what is coming down the road and what else is out in the market. The fixed industry has never had that concept. So one of our first working groups has been to define that next generation roadmap and to align it to other aspects of the industry, what the mobile industry is doing. Broadband advocacy is key, and I've mentioned that already. And so we've got a working group on the whole topic of understanding the key factors that are going to accelerate broadband adoption across the world and communicate those to all of the key stakeholders in an appropriate fashion. Environmental sustainability is of key importance to the WBBA, and we see the broadband industry as being a key player in how our industry as a whole, the whole communications industry, reduces its carbon footprint over the coming few decades. And excellence in broadband is going to be key in this area. And then also looking at, even though the WBBA is not an organization that focuses on technical standards, we do want to work very closely with the existing organizations who are developing all the standards that underpin the industry, whether it's the BBF, ETSI, whoever, ITU. And so we are looking at the evolution of network technology from the point of view of where we sit in the value chain so that we can communicate requirements back to other parts of the industry. I mentioned a number of different key pieces of output, but one of the key pieces of output was the generational roadmap, which looks at the future generations of broadband and what those characteristics are going to look like. And it's not just about speed. We often talk about broadband as if speed is the main characteristics, but there's characteristics like latency and reliability and level of autonomy and AI in the different generations, as well as aspects of security and so on, and the density of connectivity. And so we've been building a picture of what the future generations, if we're sitting at BB5 at the moment, then what does BB 5.5 look like? What does BB6? What does BB7 look like? And can we define those characteristics in a decent level of detail? And we've already produced the first white paper on that topic. We've been capturing a lot of broadband success stories. The World Broadband Association is a world broadband association. We have members already from every continent, every part of the world. But the reality is that different parts of the world are moving at different speeds. And what we're trying to do is capture excellence in one part of the world and communicate that to other parts of the world who are earlier on their journey towards broadband. And we've produced our first white paper of case studies that has been shared, but also it's a growing library that is available on our website. And as I mentioned, environmental sustainability. Again, we've produced our first view on how broadband can play a key role in tackling the overall environmental sustainability challenge our industry faces. So I welcome you here for this event today, and I invite you to, if you're already a member, get engaged in the WBBA, and if you're not a member, please reach out to us and consider joining. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Martin. And as Martin says, the WBBA has been set up to serve this need for a collective voice for the broadband industry. So, do join us in creating that collective voice. Check on the QR code on the flyer on your table, submit a membership inquiry, participate in our working groups, feature in future events. Now it's my very great pleasure to invite on stage the very newly appointed chairman of the WBBA, Dr. Li Zheng Mao.
So our friends, Mr. John Hoffman, the President Shao Guanglu of China Telecom, so distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm honored and pleased to be elected to serve as chairman of WBBA's Board of Directors at such an exciting time. WBBA accomplished its registration on November last year and officially entered into the Swiss Directory of International Organizations. The official launch ceremony was successfully held on December last year. The day before yesterday, we established the board. I want to congratulate all the board members elected and thank the joint endeavor of all the members from achieving those milestones. We will oversee the strategic direction of the association, which represents the world's operators, manufacturers, and organizations in the broadband ecosystem. Today, the rapid advancement of broadband industry is promoting the world's digital transformation at a very quick pace. It has brought about new ways of social production, created new space for people's life, expanding the horizon of state governance, and improved people's ability to understand and shape the world. However, as the majority of people sharing the digital dividends, there are nearly 2.3 billion people still haven't access to the internet. And the numerous challenges has constrained the high-quality development of broadband industry. At such a pivotal point, it is critical to work together and maximize broadband's global potential to benefit people, business, and society as a whole. In order to achieve the above goal, WBBA was launched as a joint endeavor of all parties in this industry. The association is committed to uniting the global broadband industry chain, bridging the digital divide, promoting the communication and exchange, enhancing technical cooperation, boosting the development of broadband industry, and achieving prosperity of the global digital economy. At this initial stage, WBBA will carry out the works based on three aspects. First, grow WBBA organization itself and improve the capacity for governance. 12 outstanding representatives from different fields of the industry compose the first board of directors of WBBA. Furthermore, we have also established the nomination committee and plan to set up an oversight committee and a senior advisory committee in the future. We hope to lay a solid foundation for the future development of association by forming more functional departments and expanding professional staffs in an orderly manner. Second, develop new memberships. As Martin just said, the growing membership will bring new energy and vitality to the association and help with tracking the real-time status of global broadband industry in a clear and comprehensive way. At present, the association has members from Asia, Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Oceania. This year, WBBA plans to grow the total membership over 100. The Secretary is collecting new members' intentions and will collect information about potential members worldwide through various summits, forums, websites, and other platforms. Actually, these days, so many companies who attend this Mobile World Congress ask us how to join the WBBA. They have very big interest in joining that. That's very good. Third, establish a clear industry perception and raise the brand awareness of WBBA. Today's Barcelona seminar is a good start. WBBA will continuously hold events like this and seek the opportunities to cooperate with other international organizations, especially here with GSMA, which I personally very familiar for more than 20 years. So to release flagship research outcomes and a global broadband development index on the worldwide platform. The senior leaders of WBBA will actively participate in top-level conferences and forums, speak on behalf of the association, and advise the mission and vision of WBBA. We will also encourage existing members to share its cutting-edge technological innovation and best practice, and amplify them on social media. On the WBBA official launch ceremony last year as a member, so Mr. Zhao Houlin, then the Secretary General of ITU, summarized the keys for broadband development strategy, which can be concluded as 4 I's. Number 1, infrastructure. Number 2, investment. Number 3, innovation and inclusiveness. So in the future, WBBA will carry out our long-term strategy based on those 4 I's. So, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to work closely with the rest of the board, the WBBA leadership team, and our entire membership to address the critical issue of the industry, seize the opportunities of development, and shape the bright future of the world. So we sincerely hope that more and more global partners from different areas of the industry will join WBBA, support WBBA, and cooperate with WBBA. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee Zhongmao. Some important comments there, particularly thinking about the 2.3 billion of those in the world without access to the internet and the need to maximize the potential of broadband, both of which we'll examine in the upcoming keynotes and discussions during the course of the rest of this afternoon. Given all the exciting things that are happening across Barcelona today, we are very honored indeed to be able to have a chance to welcome our next guest on stage. So please join me in inviting CEO and Director of GSMA, Mr. John Hoffman.
Well, hello everyone. My dear friends gathered here at this session today. A very warm welcome to Barcelona. Yeah. Well, a personal warm welcome. The temperature is a little chilly, but it will get better. No rain. It's wonderful to be with you here today and in person, but I thought it was very interesting that we're going to record this so that it lives on in cyberspace. So if you're watching from cyberspace later on, a dear welcome to you as well. First, let me start by congratulating the World Broadband Association on establishing its board and my good friend, Dr. Lee, as your chairman. And Martin, we wish you all the very best as you embark on this journey as its general director. I know that you have a fantastic team, and we at the GSMA look forward to working with you in many years to come. We believe this is an important endeavor, and I'll get to those reasons in a second. We all know we're living in the midst of the next technological revolution. And as we navigate our way towards a better and more sustainable world for everyone, forums such as this are crucial to bringing together leaders and stakeholders from around the world, many from across industries, to share ideas, challenges, and to innovate. But most importantly, to work towards unleashing the full potential and power of connectivity for everyone. In 2016, the mobile industry was the first industry to commit to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And since then, we have worked hard to contribute to all 17 SDGs. But the reality is that we have only a few years left to achieve these ambitious goals. And the pandemic, well, it probably set us back a bit. So we're all going to have to work harder in the coming years to get ourselves back on track. And the WBBA is going to be key to helping us do this, bringing together industry stakeholders to work on closing the digital divide, ensuring that we maximize the social, environmental, and economic benefits of broadband for everyone. Now, I think there's great news, because today 95% of the world's population is covered by mobile broadband networks. This is thanks to the efforts of mobile network operators here and around the world, who are investing in building networks and developing solutions and partnerships to reach even the most rural areas of our globe. And as coverage increases, more people are connecting to the mobile internet. And by the end of 2021, more than half of the population was connected, with 300 million more people coming online last year alone. But there's still a lot of work to be done to connect the other half of the population. And Dr. Lee, our research indicates that the problem is even bigger than you explained. I believe you said 2.3 billion are unconnected. Well, we think it's more like 3.6 billion remain unconnected. Now, this is made up of two components: a coverage gap, about 400 to 500 million people who live in areas where there is not yet service and there are no coverage by mobile broadband. The other is the usage gap. And we think that there are 3.2 billion people covered by mobile broadband, but they're not yet online. The good news is that we are working very quickly to close the coverage gap. Over the past 7 years, we have managed to reduce the coverage gap from 19% down to a mere 5%. But the usage gap, it's also being reduced, but it still remains substantial. It's actually over 8 times the size of the coverage gap. And if we want to build stronger businesses, communities, and achieve all of the SDGs, we cannot afford to leave anyone behind. And it's crucial that we focus on closing the usage gap and the remaining coverage gap in the near term, not the long term. Now, this challenge that lies ahead is a big one, but we believe it is very much worth fighting for. And the GSMA is committed to working with partners around the world to develop strategies and solutions to solve these problems. As an industry, we have come a long ways, covering 90%, 95% of the global population with our mobile networks, and bringing 55% of the world online. And these figures, while they're incredible, I know that if we keep working together through forums such as the WBBA, we can absolutely achieve our goal of closing the coverage and the usage gap, ensuring that everyone, everywhere, has the chance to benefit from the transformational power of connectivity. I thank you on behalf of the GSMA. I wish and hope that you have a very successful MWC. I hope you enjoy Barcelona. And if you don't mind, I must leave you after my talk, as I must return to Fira Gran Via to present our Glomo Award, which recognizes the best in solutions around the world. And who knows, maybe someone represented here will be one of our winners. So enjoy your conference and your networking event that comes afterwards, because MWC is about networking, discussing, debating, and solving the problems that confront us, including the usage and the coverage gap. What a great forum. Dr. Lee, Martin, I wish you all the best in your journey, and we are here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for taking the time out to join us this afternoon. And on behalf of the WBBA, we look forward to collaborating with you together in the future to address those coverage and usage gaps that you so starkly outlined. We're moving on now to our first conversational session of the afternoon to examine how we best make the case for broadband adoption and investment, and the important, in fact, critical role of government in that process. To take part in that discussion, I'd like to welcome back on stage WBBA Director General Martin Kriener, and for the first time this afternoon, Expo Advisor and WBBA Board Member, Professor Paul Morrissey.
Well, nice to have a chance to have a more general chat on some of the topics that are of key importance. And delighted to be here with Professor Paul Morrissey. And Paul and I have known each other for many years. Paul's a leading contributor to the TM Forum in my previous life as the president of the TM Forum, and he's also a very accomplished investor and chairman of multiple startups and so on. So Paul, maybe we could just kick off with your thoughts on what attracted you to the World Broadband Association, and why do you think there's a good fit for Expo, and what is Expo trying to achieve?
Okay, thank you, Martin. Yeah, we do go back a long way. Yeah, so I was appointed as a board advisor to Expo about 6 months ago, and really to try and bring to them a view on what was coming next, where they were. I mean, they're traditionally a test and measurement environment. They provide test and measurement equipment for over 95% of the world's CSPs in one way or another. And when I was asked to join the board, they were saying to me, what is next? What are we doing next? How can we move the needle in what our business does? And we started looking at how the data and how AI was going to be used within Expo. And they've run a new department, which is called ASA, which is the Advanced Service Assurance Department, which is going to use that data. And my job was really to try and show a way through that. Obviously, Expo being, it stands for excellence in fiber optics. I mean, that's where the name comes from. Been around for 35 years, very much instrumental in how we measure, test and measure the accuracy and the delivery of fiber into the network. So very, very close to where we are with World Broadband. I noticed the advertisement of the World Broadband Association and Martin's inclusion in it. And I actually said to them, this is a must. We are fundamentally in alignment with this organization. And so I reached out to you and asked whether we could join. I convinced the board it was the right thing to do. And I'm very, very glad I did. That the organization, the stuff that I've been doing in the last 3 or 4 months with you guys has been absolutely phenomenal. And we heard from numerous speakers the amount of people who are not connected to broadband. But my other side of things is, how do we maximize broadband, and how do we get, as you say, the supply side to get involved with this and not just the demand side? And that was the difference, I thought. That was where I thought I could play a difference, and it's where I want to play in this environment.
No, absolutely. And I suppose one of the things, when I introduced you, I was talking about how sort of multi-skilled and multifaceted your career is. But one of the aspects that and I've mentioned it a number of times today, is about broadband advocacy, and how do you understand and translate the broadband industry to governments, to other stakeholders. And one of the things that in our conversation that really caught my eye is the work you're doing with the UK House of Lords on their broadband strategy and their metaverse strategy. And I think, could you say a little bit about that and what they're trying to achieve? Because I think if we can understand that in our industry and really get below the skin on that, it can enable us to make significant changes.
Yeah, very much so. The UK House of Lords has many committees. They've got a broadband committee, they've got an AI committee, but they asked me to join something called the All-Party Parliamentary Group, which is an all-party. It's very neutral in the House of Lords to talk about what is happening next. We can see what's happened with the internet, with social media. We can see the damage that it's done and the benefits it's brought, but the damage it's done to a lot of people. And they are looking at what's next, Web3 and the metaverse. How will that change our interaction with our citizens? And a lot of the stuff within the metaverse is going to have to be delivered over broadband. Mobile is not going to hack it as we have it at the moment anyway, especially when we're going into fiber to the desk, fiber to the game, fiber to the person. And so that they're looking at how the harms that can do, and also the governance that we can look over the top of it. So this committee is very much around how we put in governance rules around that environment, the environment which is nascent at the moment. We don't really know what it's going to bring. We know it's going to be mainly delivered over broadband, not over mobile. And the fundamental rules, if you like, the governance rules that they put in place are trying to be established with this group. It's a group of about 7 or 8 people which meet bi-monthly. And I'm going to introduce the WBBA to them. In fact, I'm going to ask whether we can become participants, not members, because you can't be a member of the APPG, but you can be a participant. And I'd like to be the voice of that within UK government. Yeah. So, and very, very important for us. So governance, transparency, accountability, and the sharing of responsibility.
And it's fascinating what you say there, because you used the word there that, when I talk about rolling out broadband and getting more broadband there, getting it faster, getting it into more places, fibre to home, fibre to room, fibre to desk, and so on, I never think of the word harm, right? Oh. And the harm that it can do. And I would suspect many people in the room here today don't think about it in context of harm. They think about it in context of good. And of course, there's a good that it brings. But what you're saying there is that we need to think more carefully about the potential harm and be prepared in that in our conversations with those government stakeholders, because there's two sides to this conversation, the good that it can bring and the potential for harm.
Yeah, and it is a potential, but it is a real potential. I think I do a lot of this work within the AI environments as well, which is, it's going to be delivered over broadband most of the time, this artificial intelligence. And you've only got to go back to Professor Stephen Hawkins, who said AI could be the best or the worst thing that ever happens to humanity. So that double-edged sword has got to be looked at. And I think it's the role of government to put in governance measures which address that harm as well as the opportunity. I mean, many governments around the world are enabling broadband. In the UK, we've got the gigabit scheme, which is £5 billion being allocated to putting broadband into rural communities, which is great. But, we've got to think about what else comes with that. You sell a car and if you drive it correctly, it's great. If you run somebody over, it's fairly harmful. So I think you've got to look at both of those things in parallel.
Yeah, and I think, that even that one conversation would help me in terms of the broadband advocacy group, because we need to, as we're building arguments for broadband investment across the world, we need to not just beat the drum for the great things of broadband, but show that we're cognizant of the issues and hopefully be able to also share saying, and this country here got around this issue in this way, and this country here got around this issue in this way.
Yeah, you said in your opening speech, which I think is amazing, with it, we want to proliferate best practice. If we can be the custodian of that best practice and the distributor of it, both to governments and to suppliers and to telcos, then I think we're doing a good job. And I think it's an essential part of what we do. We talked about the UN sustainability goals. A lot of those are around, how we look after our citizens. After all, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have citizens. We're trying to get these 3.6 billion or 2.3 billion or however many people who are not connected. We need to know that we're connecting them with responsibility. Absolute responsibility. And that is on us. We're not all at a race to the bottom. We're at a race to make people level. And we need to take that into consideration.
That's really interesting. To kind of wrap up this discussion, what are you hoping to get from the WBBA, and what are you hoping to contribute from your massive experience? And you also mentioned, and I did mention in the introduction, your great expertise in the AI world as well, and that feeds into next generations of broadband, BB 5.5, BB 6. But so what are you kind of imagining that you might get and what you might bring?
What I get, I think, at my age, I get things which are helpful to other people. I mean, I'm not in it for the profit anymore. I'm in it for the good. So that's what I want to get out of it. I want to put some stuff in which gives good and less harm out to people. What can I put in? I can put in a wealth of experience of how this is happening within AI, what's going on with the AI industry, if you like. We're very much at the beginning of that journey, but that journey needs broadband to actually make it go forward. One of the things that we've talked about, you and I have talked about on many occasions, is, and you did touch on it, that I'm into startups. I invest in many technology startups. Lots of them are in the content environment. And the metaverse is going to be another proliferation of that content. We need broadband to be able to enable that. We need broadband to the desk, to the eye, to the goggles. That's how that's going to work. I'm not saying that it can't be done with mobile, but it's more difficult. The latency gives us some massive challenges. But I think our responsibility is to actually make sure that that environment is secure and we've thought about it. Just thinking about it is actually the first step in solving it.
And I think bringing those stakeholders into the discussion early on is going to be key to us not being in an echo chamber of our own, where the people who understand the technology, people who understand the business models of selling and creating broadband, don't just live in an echo chamber of our own community. But what we want is the type of community that you can also bring into the room to say, that's all great, but you're not talking about this important thing. You're not talking about this important thing.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, whenever somebody comes to me with a technology startup idea, I say to them, what's the problem you're solving? We know what the problem is that we're trying to solve. And go and validate it with people who you think have that problem. So if this problem is in the supply side, the metaverse, the gaming environment, we need to have that voice within our community. And I think that pushing that voice out and getting that validity into our DNA is massively important. Otherwise, I hate to use this, we're marking our own homework.
Yeah.
We end up saying it's great because we have found a bias. We founded this. Our bias is to make it successful. What our real objective should be is to why would it not be successful? We need to challenge that all the time and then come up with a solution which actually is broad on both sides, threat and opportunity.
Brilliant. So I'm going to draw us to a close here, Paul, but I think from my point of view, first of all, as always, I enjoy the conversation, but I think you're shining a light, even just in this brief exchange, on a number of aspects that maybe all of our membership and all the people who want to join should be thinking about in terms of broadening out our community, finding some extra people with different views to challenge us, to give us requirements, to tell us we need this capability, but we need it 3 years quicker than you were going to give it. And conversely, the following capability that you're investing billions to create, we won't need that for 10 years. And to help us balance our business cases and balance our business models. So I think you can bring the governmental view into the discussion, and you can bring that demand side view into the discussion as well.
Yeah, very much so. And I think what we need to do is prioritize those sort of things that we're trying to put in place, prioritize one over the other, or make sure that we know which ones come first in that journey of maturity. I think that's really important. So maybe we need to put some sort of models in place which allow us to see what the importance is and the prioritization of some of these use cases we were talking about. Should we be thinking more on the harm side, the governance side in some of these use cases than the opportunity side?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. And I will hand back now to Mark. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Paul. Particularly fascinating to consider the need to run towards the risks, to address and to mitigate the risks in order to best proliferate broadband best practice. I think that's a conversation that will continue. There was conversation there about different perspectives, different viewpoints, and again, we encourage you to bring your perspectives and viewpoints and to challenge perhaps some of the thinking that you've been hearing today by becoming a World Broadband Association member. Next, to explore for us the growing importance of and momentum behind fixed wireless access, I'd like to invite onto stage Vice President for Technology from Ookla and World Broadband Association member, Mr. Brennan Smith.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. My name is Brennan Smith. I'm the VP of Technology for Ookla. Many of you know us as the speed test company, and I'll dive into a little bit of what our data is showing with the growing momentum behind fixed wireless access. Fixed wireless access isn't a new concept. This has been around for many years. However, the technologies that are available to us now are enabling cutting-edge broadband providers to be able to expand to new markets, unlocking revenue potential, bridge the digital divide, and bring connectivity for all. So a little bit about Ookla real quick for context. We are one of the leading premier, we are the bridge between consumers and industry. And overall, we have coverage of around 600 million apps all around the globe or 600 million devices around the globe that are all able to collect information about broadband networks and carrier networks and feed that back. This is used to be able to, provide enterprise tools, data that are leveraged to be able to drive target investment and be able to see what performance is like around the globe. Now, we'll be talking about initially the US broadband market. This is a market that is ripe for disruption, and we believe this pattern will extend out to the globe overall. For the US, we are a broad technology mix. We have cable, we have fiber, we have DSL, fixed wireless access, and satellite. We also see within this market, we have strong disruptive players such as T-Mobile, who do not have legacy fixed line access. And finally, with 5G, there are new opportunities in the spectrum available, and more will be available as time moves on. As a result, we're seeing strong subscriber growth in the United States based on Ookla data. We see over 11 to 13 million FWA new subscribers by 2025. So overall, this is a greenfield opportunity for T-Mobile and many others within the space. Now, within our data, we're able to see for the wireless carrier and also the wireline for a single device. Of course, people have both. And what we see is many different interesting trends. We see that for Xfinity, there's strong correlation here. This is driving the stickiness factor for that broadband provider and will make them deeper entrenched within the user's daily life. In addition, it also means new increased average revenue per user. This is more opportunity for operators to be able to expand their opportunity horizon. We also see that for T-Mobile, this is a new opportunity. They have an incredibly strong 5G network, and they don't have a legacy landline network. They are expanding rapidly into this space, and we are looking forward to seeing what their performance is long term. This is unlocking new opportunities for them from a market perspective. But let's talk about performance and how this is being adopted. So if we talk about FWA, this isn't new, as I said. We see that on average, it has around 37.23 megabits a second, which is not cutting edge. But if we look at the top 10 percentile, which we do believe represents the cutting edge technology, we see a download speed of 618 megabits a second. This is incredible, this is cutting edge, and this does unlock new opportunities and makes it a best of breed communication medium. There's also the NPS score. This is something that we measure very closely. And what we see is that the NPS score for fixed wireless access is above average. This is a key thing to keep in mind because for FWA, these are users that may not have ever been able to be served. They may be stuck with legacy DSL lines, and the ability to move through a new medium is unlocking new opportunities for them that they wouldn't be able to otherwise receive. So even if they do not necessarily have the fastest bandwidth in the world, they are still able to access new opportunities, new experiences that they weren't able to previously. And finally, we see adoption patterns. Because FWA has a lower CapEx to deploy, we're able to cross-reference this against population centers, and this is for the state of California. Now, we do see on the left, this is from our product speed test intelligence, which shows performance by location. What we can see here is while there is definitely clusters around population centers, as one would expect, we also see in rural areas there is deployments of fixed wireless access. These are the new markets that, frankly, have never been able to be accessed due to them being cost prohibitive. However, with new technologies such as FWA and actual converged wireline and wireless access, this is now an opportunity that companies such as Xfinity, Verizon, et cetera, are targeting as part of their investment portfolio. So finally, fixed wireless access. The time is now. 30% of households in the United States remain unconnected globally, with 14 million of them residing within the United States. Higher frequency spectrum, such as C-band, millimeter wave, optimizes performance. We are limited by the bands of physics, and as a result, new regulatory measures to increase spectrum allocation will further drive this performance. Scale is required for deployment. However, we're now seeing more and more mature solutions in the market. 5G modems are accessible. They're accessible both from a hardware platform purchasing perspective, but also from a software managing perspective. We're seeing more and more CPE providers having cloud-controlled systems, and which reduce maintenance, which reduce costs, and overall can be better automated. Finally, we're seeing that fixed wireless is moving from niche to mainstream. This is something that we're very excited to see, and looking at data from our colleagues at Omdia, we are seeing that overall there's been steady growth of fixed wireless access, but if we look at the future, we see that this becomes a geometric curve, especially with the availability of 5G. We expect that the trend of 5G access will continue to grow and that this will be a dominant player within the broadband ecosystem to help fill in the gaps and to acquire new users. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brennan. Just a quick reminder to click on the QR code on your flyer and participate in the audience engagement survey and share your feedback on today's event so that we can continue to produce the most compelling content for you as the WBBA moving forwards. I think one thing we'd certainly all agree on today is that connectivity is the driving force behind the digital economy. To examine for us the importance of broadband and cloud adoption to accelerate that digital economic performance, I'd like to welcome on stage VP from China Telecom, Dr. Li Jun.
Thank you, Mark. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's my great honor to participate in the WBBA seminar and to express my warmest congratulations on the success of this seminar. And please allow me to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the industry partners and our clients for long-term support to China Telecom. Today, I'm going to share our thoughts and experiences in promoting the development of digital economy through the construction of cloud network convergence featured information infrastructure. At present, the digital economy has become a major driven power shaping the global economic landscape. According to statistics, in 2021, the total added value of the digital economy over 47 countries have reached $38.1 trillion, making up 45% of GDP on average, which effectively supports the world's economic recovery. In China, the digital economy has maintained a rapid growth rate of 15.53% on a year-on-year basis, and is expected to make up 40.5% of GDP by 2025. As the key power, the digital economy improves the efficiency of resource allocation, transforms the traditional industries, expedites new business opportunities, and improves our life quality to a much higher standard. The high-quality development of the digital economy relies on the strong support from the digital transformation infrastructure, digital information infrastructure. The traditional connection-oriented network is facing great challenges to meet the increasing digital transformation demand. The new information infrastructure featuring cloud network convergence will gradually become a solid foundation for the emergent opportunity. The network develops a new flat intelligent architecture that built around the cloud computing center. And there are a number of models in applying cloud to the industries, including public, private, hybrid, etc. With further decentralization and more fusion, cloud and network gradually evolves into a new form, what we call the network deployed and adapted to the needs of the cloud. Therefore, we can better address the various transformations demands of the real world by the combination and convergence of connectivity, cloud, AI, and cybersecurity capabilities. China Telecom is in leading position of building a new information infrastructure with the cloud network convergence features. We put forward the concept of optical network 2.0, which has the vision of building a full optical intelligent network with flat architecture. And now, with the assistance of our partners, we have built the world's largest and most extensive broadband network infrastructure with optical backbone, which covers 460 key nodes in China, with the bandwidth reaching 800 terabit per second. And our optical transmission network serving the industry clients has covered 345 major cities in China. In terms of cloud infrastructure, we have built an indigenous China Telecom e-cloud platform. And it has become the largest operator cloud globally, and as well as the leading hybrid cloud domestically. The hierarchical computing power service system integrates various cloud usages with cloud, edge, and terminals coordinating smoothly. Its computing power has reached 3.8 EFLOPS by the end of last year. Moreover, by integrating AI abilities into the cloud service, the 5GC intelligent operation system has significantly increased the efficiency of the network maintenance, improved customer experiences, shortened the period of product release, and enabled agile launch of services. For example, the automation of the key maintenance task upgrades the working efficiency by 80%. The time cost of UPF deployment has been dramatically reduced from 3 days to 3 hours. And the configuration of network elements improves to minutes level. China Telecom eCloud has formed a cloud network convergence layout by investing large resources over the years. There are 2 top-tier data centers located in regions with abundant energy resources, 4 second-tier data centers deployed in the most developed areas, 31 distributed data centers been built in each provinces, and a large number of edge clouds to cover more than 300 cities. O is the construction of nodes along the Belt and Road, extending the computing power in overseas areas. So from the slide, you can see that the O stands actually overseas, and X stands a lot. The eCloud has made great progress in a series of fields such as cloud operating system, distributed database, elastic computing, CDN, etc., and has become the industry-leading platform, which is credible, secure, and open for access. The total revenue of eCloud has grown rapidly in recent years, which accounted to $8.9 billion last year, ranking the first among the global operators in public cloud. Our cloud business focuses on key industries like smart city, manufacturing, transportation, education, medical, and other key sectors, building a new growth engines driven by the integration of cloud, AI, cybersecurity, and digital platform, which I just mentioned before, enabling the digital transformation of the numerous industries. Until now, our eCloud has carried more than 20 provincial government clouds, 31 provincial medical platforms, 8,000 medical institutions, leading in the cloud construction of more than 1,000 smart city projects, and over 100,000 manufacturing companies, which effectively promoting the digital transformation of China's economy and society. Ladies and gentlemen, WBBA brings together global network operators, suppliers, cloud service providers, and other stakeholders. It plays an important role in promoting communication and exchange, strengthening technology and commercial cooperation, and promoting the innovation of global cloud and network information infrastructure. China Telecom is looking forward to working closely with all WBBA members. By sharing our practices, we truly wish to inspire more stakeholders to participate and drive innovation with us, to engage in the journey of digital transformation on the platform of WBBA. Dear partners, let's work together to maximize the broadband's full potential, to eliminate the digital divide, and to shape a brighter future for the global economy. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Li Jun. And an excellent call to action there for everybody in the room, but for everybody watching the recorded version on the website. How the new digital infrastructure will drive the digital economy is the focus of the latest WBBA working group, and very much touches on a lot of the themes and thoughts that were shared in that presentation. So we urge you to participate in that working group, and also to access the existing working group white papers via the QR code on the flyer on your seats. Now for a look at the light that broadband currently brings to the world and how we need to move forward as an industry, I'd like to invite onto the stage WBBA founder member and CTO of FITS Networks from Nokia, Stefan van Hastel.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I know what you're thinking. You're looking at the logo on that screen and you're wondering, who is that company? Did the agenda change? And just want to reassure you, no, we're still Nokia. We just changed our logo. We've been in this industry for about 20 years, since the birth of broadband, really, since the early ADSL days. And I really want to talk today about the product that we're promoting. And with product, I mean broadband. As an association, our stated mission, our stated goal is that we want to advocate for broadband, that we want to promote broadband, we want to drive adoption. So through the next couple of slides, I will look at that product between quotes. The good news is, it's a product that practically sells itself. We don't really need to convince anyone. We don't really need to convince anyone of the benefits that broadband will bring. I chose the title "Let There Be Light" for two reasons. Mark already alluded at one of those reasons. Broadband really has the potential to enlighten all of us, to improve our lives. The second one is that light and optical transmission actually plays a key role in delivering the benefits of broadband. In the case of fiber to the home, it's quite obvious that is optical fiber transmission. But even in the case of the latest DSL technologies, G.fast, or the latest cable technologies, DOCSIS 4.0, or the latest wireless technologies, millimeter wave fixed wireless access, all of these technologies really rely on fiber being deployed pretty close to the end user. So let there be light, no matter what technology, is actually quite an apt call to action. So let's dive in. So first of all, I wanted to have a look at the state of broadband today. And broadband today is really quite different from what many people remember broadband is. And the world as a whole has moved largely to fiber, or has started to move towards fiber, some faster than others, some with more enthusiasm than others. But we are moving. We've seen the evolution of DSL technology. We've seen the evolution of cable technology. We've seen the emergence of fixed wireless access, the move from 4G to 5G. And as a result, and we're also seeing quite recently, or since a couple of years, we also see a massive shift in the market towards even next generation fiber service. 10 gig technology is really becoming the new default. Operators who started deploying GPON technology are now moving to XGS, for example, 10 gig symmetrical. New operators, new entrants, alternative networks, municipalities, city networks, infrastructure builders, when they are starting to build out fiber today, they move immediately to fiber. They move immediately to 10 gigabit fiber. Nokia, for example, we are already shipping more XGS than regular GPON. In some regions, XGS is the only thing we still supply. The market has moved completely. We expect that as a whole, XGS will overtake regular GPON somewhere in the next 9 months. Now, all of this has brought us to the picture that you see on the screen here. And one of the things, like I said, broadband is no longer the stuffy old broadband that some people might think it was. We see that 1 gig has become the new normal. There are more than 450 operators around the world who are already offering a 1 gig residential broadband service. That's a massive number. There are already more than 90 operators around the world who are offering multi-gig residential services. 2 gigabit per second, 4 gigabit per second, 8 gig, 10 gig. We've even seen the start of a third generation of fiber upgrades, the move to 25 gig. There's multiple operators who have launched services based on 25 gig in the UK and in the US, for example. So broadband is really evolving, is evolving very quickly. And I'll come back to why these speeds are important. Now, it's even more impressive if you think about how far we've come. I started by saying that Nokia has been in the broadband space for about 20 years, since the early ADSL days. And back then, 2 megabits per second sustained speed was really, was really blazingly fast connectivity. Today, even with a very conservative calculation, average sustained speed is more than 120 megabits per second. That's an increase of a factor 64 in just 15 years. That by itself is an amazing achievement for any industry. But at the same time, if you look at the power consumption numbers from the Code of Conduct from the European Commission, you can actually see that power consumption was reduced by 38%, or multiplied by a factor 0.62. Put two together, and that's actually a gain in efficiency of a factor 100 over just 15 years. So not only are we delivering more speeds, and we're delivering these gigabit speeds, we're actually doing it at a lower power consumption than the original 2 megabit per second speed back in the days. And this is only going to continue. We're only seeing the start. We're going to see the evolution from 5G to 6G. We're going to see the evolution from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7 to Wi-Fi 8. We're going to see the evolution from 25 gigabit per second PON to 50 gig to 100 PON, to 100 gig PON. The sky is really the limit. So from that perspective, we really have the product that we're trying to sell is not only incredibly fast, really future-proof, but is also a really green, green and power-efficient technology as a whole. Now, broadband is important for two reasons. The first one was already alluded to. Broadband can really bring socioeconomic benefits. It has changed people's lives, and it will change people's lives. Getting access to e-health, e-learning, getting access to all the knowledge in the world can really make a big difference for anyone, especially if you're in the most remote corners of the planet. Now, we were talking about gigabit speeds earlier, and if you think about that, there are really two different speeds we need to talk about. And of course, it's important, and the biggest priority is to make sure that everyone has access to a basic broadband offer. And even getting access to a few tens of megabits per second on mobile broadband can make a world of difference. But in parallel to that goal, we also need to make sure that we work towards getting everyone towards the gigabit future. So we really need to work on those two goals in parallel. Yes, connecting everyone with a basic broadband service is the most important, but in parallel, we need to work on that gigabit future. So that's one area where broadband makes a huge difference. The second one is that broadband also has the potential to transform businesses and to transform everything we do. Some of us in this room are old enough to recognize what these things used to be. You know, the videotape, a record, and a set of encyclopedias. All of these have been massively changed by the advent of broadband. And it doesn't stop here, obviously. You know, broadband has transformed the way we do meetings and allowed us to work remotely. That means we're taking cars off the road. It means we're taking planes out of the air. All of that means that broadband also has the potential to impact other industries, to make them better, to unlock new business cases, to unlock new opportunities, but also to help save the planet. So finally, where will broadband go next? I mean, like I said, the sky is the limit, right? So broadband is not just, we tend to think about broadband as in terms of, it's fiber to the home. That word by itself, although it's quite exciting, is actually also limiting. If you think about it, broadband is not really a fiber to the home network or a fixed wireless access network or a DOCSIS or a cable network or a DSL network. It's really an infrastructure that passes every home, every street, every building, that has unlimited potential. We've increased the speeds a factor 64 in the past 15 years. We will continue to do so. It is green, has low power consumption. It will last forever. Once it requires significant time to deploy, but once it's there, it's going to last forever. So this is a network, this is an infrastructure that can be used, yes, to connect homes, but it can also be used to connect businesses, to connect schools, to connect smart city infrastructure, and basically to support any use case that people can think of. So we do have a fantastic product, between quotes again, that we are working with, that we are trying to convince policymakers, regulators, investors to invest in. So please join us and help promote broadband. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Stefan. Some really critical insights there from Stefan and from Nokia. And this question of where will broadband go next is really the big exam question that we're seeking to address as the World Broadband Association. So do join us and contribute to that conversation as we continue to address it. We're now moving on, as the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted, to the panel section of our agenda. There is a conversation to be had around how do we best define the digital divide and what is the right consensus to how we solve that problem. We're talking about really big cross-industry challenges that require really deep thinking and cross-industry solutions. And this is what we're going to begin to address during the panel discussion this afternoon. So please join me in welcoming onto stage Richard Jin from Huawei, Tiao Tao from China Unicom, and my dear colleague, Stephen Wilson. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on stage this afternoon. I think just by way of kind of setting the scene for the conversation, it's undisputed that broadband is an enabler of GDP and that is now part of our everyday lives. But high-quality broadband connectivity is now critically important. If we think about really maximizing the potential of a country to drive its digital economy and socio-economic growth, we really need to start to think about moving the digital divide conversation on from one of a straightforward consideration of connected versus unconnected towards a conversation which has a long-term strategy behind it, which will evolve us towards advanced broadband networks, onwards to gigabit societies which connect entire communities. Because the individuals, the businesses, the citizens, the consumers who have access to high quality, low latency, ultra fast, ultra reliable broadband networks will have an advantage over those who don't. And that's what we're going to look at here during this panel with our expert speakers. We're going to consider what are the success stories and strategies that operators, vendors, governments, policymakers, investors need to consider if, as an industry, we're going to achieve our broadband connectivity goals, if we're going to close the digital divide globally, and if we're going to drive genuine and sustainable socioeconomic growth. We will, of course, welcome questions from the audience, so please do put up your hand as we go if you have a point to raise or a question to ask. But before we get started, I'd like to invite my panelists here to make a brief introduction of themselves. Mr. Jin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Jin. I am from Huawei. I look after optical business unit, including optical transmission, fixed network, and other optical application business. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Tao.
I'm Qiu Tao. I come from China Unicom Global, and it's very glad to join this afternoon's discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Stephen Wilson.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Stephen Wilson. I'm an analyst at Omdia. Been covering the broadband space for around 15 years. So looking at broadband both through the supply side, but also looking at demand as well.
Great, thank you all. To get us going, maybe if I just start with a brief statement. And connectivity is obviously critical and essential to the development of the digital economy. And the ultimate goal is to be able to provide everybody with high quality broadband connectivity. If we take a step back for a moment, how do we think we're doing in terms of the provision of high quality broadband connectivity, and how important is that in terms of driving regional developments? Maybe Stephen, if I come to you first of all.
Yeah, sure. So I guess one way of answering that is looking at fiber to the home coverage. We certainly see in some of the larger developed markets that is reaching sort of 90% plus of total country premises. I think over the next few years we'd expect other developed markets to follow that same kind of trajectory. I think also a lot of fiber to the home in emerging markets. It is a little bit more variable in terms of the scale of those deployments, but the trajectory is the same. So there are some very large deployments, let's say, for example, in Southeast Asia and Latin America, but also in other regions as well. And I think, if we look at then the demand side, what we note is actually fixed broadband speeds are pretty good. So 60% of global fixed broadband speeds were 100 megabits per second and above in 2020, and that had grown to 69% by the end of 2022. So that's a pretty decent performance. I suppose one perhaps bigger area of concern, or partial area of concern, is just in some of the emerging markets sort of had a bit of a difficult time economically emerging from COVID. And that has meant in some cases, after a real boom in subscriber numbers during the pandemic and during lockdowns, that growth has now tailed off quite substantially. However, that's definitely not universal. So there are some other large emerging markets, let's say India, where the growth in subscriber numbers continues to be very strong. And I think all that's hugely important, really. The ability of a fixed line connection to deliver uncapped service to subscribers can drive overall data consumption in a country, allow consumers and enterprises to get the full benefit from data. So there's a bit of commentary on the state of play.
Thank you, Stephen. I don't know, Mr. Jin, any comments there? Because otherwise, what I would like to do is look at some of the, from an operator perspective, we think about that driving of regional development. Mr. Tao, perhaps some of the innovative use cases that you're seeing that are being deployed and developed in industry, perhaps.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, if we consider the fixed network development here, compared with the mobile industry, is I think is still far behind. Yeah, the reason is when we develop the fixed network, we are always facing a lot of challenge, including the rewrite, the construction cost by deploying fibers. Therefore, we need to find the solutions to solve those problems, including the government policy, regulator support, investment support, all kinds of things, and also from equipment point of view, what we can do is to innovate, to provide a new solution to reduce the construction cost, to support the faster delivery, to faster deployment of the fixed broadband network.
Excellent, very good. And that innovation, Mr. Tao, at China Unicom, some of the use cases that you're seeing being deployed right now.
Okay. Connectivity has always been one of the main business of China Unicom. And China Unicom attaches great importance to the coverage of connectivity. The construction of network is being promoted every year. By the end of 2022, China Unicom has completed all optical fiber network coverage in urban areas and basically completed optical fiber network coverage in rural areas. China Unicom provides broadband service for more than 100 million users. However, for remote areas, as well as areas with scattered users, network construction in traditional way is difficult and costly, so which puts considerable pressure on operators. In this scenario, China Unicom used quick ODN and outdoor OLT to complete network coverage in such special areas. Quick ODN is composed of prefabricated optical cables, prefabricated connectors, and digital management system. Through prefabrication technology, the rapid connection of ODN network construction can be realized. ODN can be buried or overhead, and the information of passive optical devices of ODN can be recorded through the management app scanning code. Automatically generate network topology. Outdoor small OLT is a single slot miniaturized OLT equipment which can be directly placed outdoor based on the protective shell. So the OLT can be directly hung on the pole of the base station and use the base station power supply. So at the same time, the OLT does not need to be configured on site. Through the use of new technologies to expand the network coverage, aiming to provide network connectivity for the remote areas, promote regional development, and provide digital services.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Tao. There was a hypothesis, I guess, that as the world emerged, post-COVID, that the demands, or the bandwidth demands on fixed networks would maybe start to drop or to plateau, and that hasn't been the case. If we think about operators and how successfully they're evolving their digital infrastructure, What are the pain points and challenges that China Unicom are facing right now, Mr. Tao?
Okay. China Unicom continues to update network infrastructure and is currently expanding the construction of 10G PON network. With FTTR technology, it has provided high-quality network service to users. And at the same time, China Unicom deploys intelligent operation and maintenance system to promote the automation and the intelligence of network maintenance. While improving the network infrastructure, it also faces the management and the maintenance challenge of large number of passive optical devices in the access network. Passive devices have the advantages of low cost and low energy construction, but it also brings problems that it's difficult to manage by digital means because of the passive characteristic. The large number of passive devices and the buried environment increase the difficulty of maintenance. Although there are some management methods at present, but there's no efficient, convenient, and low-cost way to overcome these challenges. Innovative solutions from relevant industries are still needed to fill the gap.
Understood, very much so. And if those are some of the challenges, and I'll come to you in a moment on this, Stephen, I wonder, Mr. Jin, what should some of the technology priorities be for the industry to overcome these challenges?
Okay, actually, for the fixed network development in different market, they facing different challenges. Just now, Mr. From China Unicom, mentioned they are facing how to, how to improve the experience, the user experience, and how to, increase the revenue by, improving the experience and the user experience. I think this is the situation in the developed market, like in China, like in Europe. Therefore, we need the innovative solution to support their requirements. For instance, 2 years ago, we launched the FTTR solution, fiber to the room solution. As you know, as before, in China, we only have fiber to the home. Fiber to the home, it can support, 100 megabps Wi-Fi, very good experience. There is no problem. However, China, in the last 2 years, we have already have more than, almost 100 million gigabit users, and the users, home broadband users. Therefore, how to get the gigabit, a real gigabit Wi-Fi, experience? This is a big challenge for the network providers. And based on this requirement, Huawei, we innovated the FTTR solution to support this. To support these requirements and help our customers to increase the revenue, increase the ARPU. And also, this solution we can also extend it to the business, users, business enterprise customers. This is in the developed market. If we see the developing market in the world, for instance, in the Asia, in Africa, the big challenge is how to build the FTTH network faster and low cost. This is the challenge in those markets. But for us, for the suppliers, we always provide the innovative solution. We provide we call CO plus X solution. What means X? X means we use the central office plus the airport solution. This small ORT can be installed on pole, on the building, on the every site. Every site. By this way, we can provide a very cost-effective solution to support their FTTH business, and it can be very fast to be deployed.
Excellent. And so I think we would all agree then that advanced broadband networks and FTTH, FTTR provide great opportunities for the industry. but there may be some concerns that they require significant investment. So I wonder, Stephen, how can we best make the case for investment? How do we best bolster ROI there?
Yeah, so I guess there are two ways of looking at that. There's the revenue side. Mm-hmm. So I think one point I'd like to make is I think sometimes we underestimate the willingness to pay for an uncapped fixed broadband connection in emerging markets. So I think a lot of the evidence shows households in lower income markets sort of willing to pay about 4 or 5% of their household income on a decent quality fixed broadband connection, which is pretty good, really. So don't underestimate willingness to pay in terms of revenue. If we look at some of the developed markets, I think there are opportunities to boost ARPUs with lots of things associated with Wi-Fi. Could be different services associated with Wi-Fi, better quality cloud managed Wi-Fi. So there are things that you can do on the demand side, on the revenue side, but I think as well on the supply side, on the cost side, there are things that operators can look at. So one thing in sort of lower income markets where you might think that there are more question marks over how well the take-up will go, you can accommodate that in terms of how you're rolling out fiber. Maybe you choose to stop the homes passed phase further away from the consumer's premises. If you do that, what you're doing is pushing more of the costs onto the success-based connection part when someone actually signs up. So there are ways of sort of manipulating, changing that cost base to take account of perhaps potential lower take-up in areas of lower income. So I think there are things you can do on the revenue and cost side. Generally, I think a pretty good business case in a lot of occasions for investment in things like fiber to the home.
Absolutely, and just staying with fiber to the home, there is still there's this belief that it's for developed markets only. How much of a risk is that position?
I think it is a risk. I mean, I think the first point is that in a lot of sort of mid and lower income markets, that fiber to the home rollout has already happened. Particularly if you look at Southeast Asia, you look at countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, to an extent, Philippines. So really significant rollouts there. Latin America is in full swing in terms of fiber rollout. So there are countries that are already doing that. Those that don't do that are obviously falling behind. But also it's this point about if you don't invest in technologies which provide an uncapped, unlimited fixed broadband experience, you will artificially constrain total data usage, and therefore your citizens are deprived of all the benefits that additional data usage can bestow. So that kind of really gets to the heart of the discussion. There's a lot of value that the fixed broadband can provide, and I think that's really a global thing, a global phenomenon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. A lot of the conversation today, understandably, has been about performance, and performance is always a focus, but sustainability is obviously a crucial part of service providers' strategies now. Mr. Tao, from your perspective at China Unicom, how successfully are service providers implementing sustainability strategies?
Okay. With the application of 10G PON and FTTR technologies and the development of new technologies such as 50G PON in the future, high-quality optical fiber network will be provided to users. High-quality network means more investment. China Unicom mainly guaranteeing the necessity of investment from new service scenarios and new network capabilities. First of all, in terms of new service scenarios, with the development of energy service like VR, AR, and online live broadcast conference, the demand for greater bandwidth, lower latency latency and higher reliability is pulled forward for the network. Secondly, all trades are facing digital transformation. The development of smart transportation, smart community, smart city also opens up new industry application scenarios for the network and also brings more benefits. Finally, digital infrastructure has brought intelligence and computing to the network, which can enable the network to achieve intelligent control, operation, and maintenance, and sense the quality of service, greatly improve the efficiency of network operation and maintenance, and reduce user complaints, which also mean greatly reducing the network maintenance cost of operators. The above can represent all benefits from investment in digital technology equipment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Cao. And Mr. Jin, from a Huawei perspective, what might sustainability best practice look like in the future?
I think the best practice in this area is how to use the new technology to reduce the power consumption. We believe in the future fiber will replace the copper and the cable. As you know, even in Europe, in European Union, they have already calculated with the fiber replacing the copper, they can reduce the power consumption by 10 times. Yeah, by 10 times. And another thing is, when we consider the network, the transport network, currently we still use a lot of electrical technologies. We use router hub by hub, and we use the electrical cross connection technologies. Mm-hmm. We believe, in the future we can use more optical cross connection technology to replace this pure electrical cross connections. Mm-hmm. By this way, it can reduce the power consumption dramatically. Generally speaking, I think as you know, we are discussing the 5G advanced standard in the ETSI. Yes. When they consider the 5G advanced, the big target is to put fiber to everywhere and put the optical cross connection to every site. I think this is the best practice. I believe this is the future.
Thank you, Mr. Jin. Before we start to wrap up the panel conversation, I just want to kind of take a step back and look across all of our topics of conversation this afternoon. The World Broadband Association's mission statement is to connect the world by bringing the benefit of broadband to all. I'd like to ask each of you in turn, how can the World Broadband Association support the effective closing of the digital divide? Mr. Jin. Okay.
Yeah, I think WBBA World Broadband Association is very, very important for the fixed network ecosystem. In the beginning, Martin mentioned if we see the mobile industry, there are very clear generation definition: 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. However, if we see the fixed broadband network, it is before. It was always fragmental. Therefore, I think the first thing is we can define a very clear, the future generation definition in this, association. The second is, I think we can discuss the target network, the ultimate, target network for the future fixed broadband networks. For instance, different operators, they use different technologies. As you know, in China, we have already swapped all the copper to the fiber. This is the best practice. I think in other market we should consider this is a target. Other operators they no need to build the copper network anymore. Just directly build the FTTH network, and also they can consider the target network to support their future services smoothly. The third one is, I think, based on this association, for the fixed network, it's very challenging to build. Therefore, we can, collaborate with the government, with the policymaker, with the, regulators. We work together, to solve those challenges, including how to get the way right, how to deploy the fiber more efficient, and also, how to get the investment from the government and the regulators.
Absolutely, and I think bringing together all of those different industry stakeholders is a key part of the WBBA mission. And from a next generation roadmap perspective, the development of that, as Martin referenced earlier, is a key part of the ongoing working group focus at the WBBA. Mr. Tao.
Okay. As a global organization, WBBA connects with global broadband network operators, suppliers, cloud service providers, and financial investment institutions, and so on. First of all, attracting more members to join in order to expand WBBA's coverage and influence. Secondly, investing more resources to solve the digital divide through industry guidance and publicity. Finally, WBBA can accelerate greater network coverage by promoting technological innovation of low cost and cost-effective technology, especially for remote areas, and so to close the digital divide.
Absolutely. I think being at the forefront of that innovation is an important part of how the WBBA achieves its vision and mission. Thank you. And Stephen.
Yes, I think one thing here is sort of the sharing of best practice. So that could be, for example, through our collateral, white papers, case studies, covering best practice in terms of broadband. I think there's an element here of sharing expertise as well. Clearly, we're all here together in this event, so I'd encourage everyone to interact and share their expertise on all things broadband related. And I also think there's a very important role here in terms of raising awareness amongst different stakeholders. So that could be policymakers and governments in terms of them understanding the importance of broadband, but it's also the investment community as well, helping to direct them into areas where investment is required, helping them understand the opportunities that are out there in investing in fixed broadband. So those are some of the things I would highlight there.
Absolutely. So, collaborate, educate, raise awareness. Those are things which we strive to continue to do as the WBBA. We urge you to join us and to participate and to contribute as members. But for the time being, I'd like you just to thank all of our panelists today for this interesting discussion, and join me in thanking Mr. Richard Jin, Mr. Tao, and Stephen Wilson. And before we retire next door for some very well-deserved networking refreshment, I'd like to welcome back on stage for his closing remarks, the WBBA Director General, Martin Kriener.
First of all, I know I'm standing between you and a cocktail reception, and we are a few minutes over schedule, so I will not take more than a few moments to, first of all, thank all of our excellent speakers. We had a wide range of very senior individuals taking time out of their day, out of their week, in order to support the WBBA, and I'm hugely grateful for that. Secondly, I felt, whilst some things I heard today were what I expected, other things forced me to think, and I hope it did the same to all of you. There was some ideas, some concepts that I felt were challenging and challenging me in how to think about the future of WBBA. And so I hope everybody else got as much out of that I did. And thirdly, I would just very much look forward to having a casual chat with any of you who can stay and share a drink and a bite of food with us in the cocktail reception, which is next door. So thank you for attending. our WBBA seminar and watch this space. Thank you.